Denmark, which controls Greenland, it's not doing its job and it's not being a good ally. So you have to ask yourself, how are we going to solve that problem, solve our own national security? If that means that we need to take more territorial interest in Greenland, that is what President Trump is going to do, because he doesn't care about what the Europeans scream at us. He cares about putting the interests of America's citizens first.
This is my video update on this Monday, midday, March the 24th. Coming to you from Nicosia, Cyprus. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with elections in Canada. Snap elections have been called in Canada by Mark Carney. The elections are scheduled for April the 28th. And Carney said during his speech announcing the snap elections that he is going to take on the Americans if he is elected as the Prime Minister of Canada. To take on the Americans, to fight the Americans. That's what I believe Mark Carney said. The former head of the Bank of England, oh my God, the former head of the Bank of England, calling snap elections so that he can win the support of the Canadian people to fight the Americans, to fight Trump. So that is the news out of Canada. Once again, snap elections in about a month. So the Trump administration, they're making their moves on Greenland. We have a delegation that I believe arrived in Greenland today. A delegation consisting of J.D. Vance, his wife. I believe Mike Waltz was also on the flight to Greenland. And so they're arriving to Greenland so that they can check things out. Take a look at everything that Greenland has to offer. Look at the land, look at the property, check out what the Trump administration, what they can build, the hotels, the resorts, the casinos. I don't know what they're checking out in Greenland, but they're there. They traveled to Greenland, and it is an important delegation to check things out. Vance, he was speaking to the media yesterday, and the vice president said that Denmark, as he was talking about Greenland, Denmark is not a good ally of the United States, or has not been acting as a good ally of the United States. Quite an admission, a statement from Vance, huh? Not a good ally of the USA. Oh boy. Denmark is going to have to fight a two-front war, huh? It's going to have to take on the Russians in Ukraine, and now it's going to take on the Americans in Greenland. Yeah, Vance said that Denmark is not a good ally. Oh boy, the U.S. is actively preparing to take over Greenland from Denmark. Several senior Trump administration officials are set to travel to Greenland next week, according to the Financial Times. Well, this week. A two-front war for Denmark. The Russians and the Americans. No problem. No problem for the Prime Minister of Denmark, Mette Frederiksen. She can handle it. Good thing that Denmark is led by such a competent, courageous and intelligent leader like Frederiksen, she'll be able to defeat the Russians in Ukraine, and she'll be able to expel the Americans out of Greenland. No doubt about it. So we have the negotiations that are taking place in Riyadh. The negotiations between Ukraine and the United States, they wrapped up yesterday. The reports are that the talks between the United States and Ukraine lasted a total of 40 minutes. That's right, 40 minutes. And the word on the street is that basically the United States, they told the Ukrainian officials how the Black Sea ceasefire, how it's going to go down, and for the Ukraine officials to take the terms back to Zelensky and to just comply with the next phase of the Trump administration's ceasefire agenda. 40 minutes, that's how long the talks lasted. The negotiations between the Ukrainian and American delegations yesterday lasted a little over 40 minutes. Since the guys there know English much worse than Zelensky, a lot of time was spent translating and reviewing the documents prepared by the U.S. There are no negotiations. There are American instructions to Kiev, which it must accept. This is coming from the X account of Yeroman. As I was saying yesterday in my video update, that's exactly how things went down in Riyadh. The United States, they sat at the table across from the Ukraine delegation, which was a delegation headed by the defense minister, Umerov. But they sat across from Ukraine and they said, here's the deal. Here's how this is going to unfold. Take a look at the documents. We know that they're in English, so we'll translate them for you guys. But take the documents, read them over, take them back to Zelensky, and comply. Do as we are telling you. And we're going to be speaking with the Russians very soon, so we can try to figure out the next phase to all of this. Yeah, there are no negotiations between the United States and Ukraine, because this is a conflict between the United States and Russia, and Ukraine is simply the proxy. So all they need from Ukraine is for Ukraine to publicly get on board with everything the U.S. is putting out there with regards to the terms of the ceasefire. Just comply, get on board, publicly state that you support Trump's ceasefire plan for the PR, for the optics of it. And then we'll get to elections eventually, and we'll vote the Green Goblin out. We'll remove the Green Goblin eventually. But for now, just go along with the plan. So that's the latest from the negotiations in Riyadh. And the Zelensky officials, they were decked out in the green outfit, huh? They didn't suit it up for these negotiations. They decided to make a statement. They went into the talks wearing green, the Zelensky outfit, which also says that Ukraine is not interested in going along with the plan of the United States. Their choice of outfits shows their defiance to all of this. The Green Goblin outfit. So we have the US and Russia negotiating today, and everything's going to wrap up from Riyadh tomorrow. And they're going to talk about the Black Sea ceasefire, which is just a return to the grain deal. Remember the Black Sea grain deal? That's basically what they're going to talk about. There are some rumors, and these are just rumors, which claim that if they agree to a Black Sea ceasefire, then it's going to be American ships that are going to monitor the naval ceasefire in the Black Sea. So American ships in the Black Sea. This is just rumor. But if Russia were to accept that, then that's crazy, man. That is absolutely crazy if they were to accept such a thing. We'll see. Mike Waltz, he was on the Sunday talk shows, and he described the ceasefire talks that are taking place as 3 more steps. So you already had the first step, which was the energy infrastructure ceasefire, which Ukraine has already broken, but we'll not get into that in this video. So you have the next 3 steps, according to Waltz, which is the Black Sea ceasefire, and they're going to be speaking with the Russians about that. And if they agree to the Black Sea ceasefire, then according to Waltz, they're going to move on to a wider ceasefire. And then if they agree to a wider ceasefire, then they're going to talk territory. And according to Waltz, that is the negotiation roadmap. And it's going to take some time to get there, to get to all of these phases. But for Waltz, that is the plan. That's how things, for the American side, that's how they would like things to go down. I bet you if you fixed up that car, it would be pretty nice. But it needs a lot of work, man. It needs a lot of work. Probably be fun, though, to fix it up. So what else? What else should we talk about? Since we're talking about ceasefire roadmaps, Bloomberg put out an article with the title, U.S. hopes for Ukraine peace deal soon as Putin seems in no hurry. Yes, Putin is in no hurry, according to Bloomberg. But the Bloomberg article, they're saying that the Trump administration wants a total ceasefire by April the 20th, Easter. This year, Orthodox Easter and Catholic Easter falls on the same day. Pascha, Orthodox Pascha. Catholic Easter is on the 20th. And Trump would like a total ceasefire by then, according to Bloomberg. In the Bloomberg article, they blame the violations of the ceasefire on Russia. That's what Bloomberg does in their article. They make no mention of Ukraine breaking the ceasefire at all. It's Russia that has continued to violate the ceasefire, according to Bloomberg. But that's expected from Bloomberg, propaganda outlet that has been getting the entire Ukraine conflict wrong from day one. But this Easter 20th ceasefire is actually the February Strana ceasefire plan. Remember that Strana ceasefire plan that Budanov android AI robot Budanov allegedly leaked to the media. This was back in early February, where it was a ceasefire plan that, according to Strana, which is a Ukraine publication, which the claims are that Budanov is kind of behind all of the stuff that Strana is putting out there. That there was a plan that Strana got a hold of, which claimed that the goal was for an Easter ceasefire. And the ceasefire would consist of a freezing of the conflict. I'm trying to remember what the ceasefire was saying. It was a freezing of the conflict on the current front lines. It would call for a demilitarized zone, a DMZ. The Europeans and the UK, they would be monitoring the DMZ. And the Zelensky regime would accept that Russia would be controlling the parts of Ukraine that it currently controls, according to the freeze. And the Europeans, they would put the money up to reconstruct Ukraine. There would be no US forces in Ukraine. It would be European peacekeepers in Ukraine and European money in Ukraine, reconstructing Ukraine. And I think that was it. That was the Strana plan. Oh, and Ukraine would be entering the European Union. So the conflict would freeze. There would be a DMZ. Ukraine would enter the European Union. European peacekeepers in Ukraine. European money reconstructing Ukraine. And all of this was going to happen by April 20th. And the reason that Budanov put this plan out there in February, I don't know if you guys remember the video update that I did from Limassol. Budanov allegedly was in a meeting with parliament officials, and the claim was that Budanov told the parliament members that by summertime, if there was no freeze in the conflict, then the Ukraine military would collapse. It was exhausted and would not be able to continue to fight the Russian military past the summer. And so Budanov wanted to somehow float out the idea of a freeze, hoping that it would get to the Trump administration. And so allegedly, he went to Strana. Strana posted this Easter ceasefire freeze plan, hoping that it would reach the ears of Donald Trump, and it would influence Trump in his negotiations and his negotiation roadmap and plans. And that was what the purpose of the Strana ceasefire was back in February. And so here we have Bloomberg resurrecting this Strana plan, saying that the goal is an Easter ceasefire. Keep in mind that the Strana plan also said that one of the terms of the ceasefire back in February was that Ukraine would give up Kursk in order to get the freeze along the current front lines. That was going to be the big concession that Ukraine was going to make, according to this ceasefire plan floated out by Budanov and Strana. That didn't age well. That did not age well. Yeah, that was going to be the big concession, that Ukraine was going to leave Kursk. It also said that Putin and Zelensky would be talking by late March, I believe it said. One second. I think it said late March that Zelensky and Putin would be talking to each other in late February or early March. Yeah, that didn't age well either. And that by May 9th, early May, after the ceasefire went into effect on April 20th, on May 9th, Trump would announce a full deal in Ukraine, an end to the hostilities and the lasting peace in Ukraine. Yeah, the timeline is completely off. Bloomberg, everybody, not the most accurate of of publications when it comes to Project Ukraine. But they're trying to push some sort of a freeze or some sort of a ceasefire. They're desperate to get some sort of a freeze or some sort of a ceasefire because on the front lines, things are getting very interesting and very bad for the Ukraine military. In Pokrovsk, let's start with Pokrovsk. There's fighting in the gray area of Pokrovsk, a gray zone, and it looks like some days the Russian forces advance, other days the Ukraine forces advance in this gray zone area. The Ukraine military, they keep on pouring in reinforcements in order to hold on to Pokrovsk, which is a critical town to hold on to, a logistics and supply hub. And the latest reports are that the Ukraine military has managed to advance in this gray zone area. In Toretsk, we are getting reports that the Ukraine military is about to crumble in Toretsk, and the Russian military is going to take over, to capture Toretsk. Yesterday, I talked about Chasov Yar. Not looking good for the Ukraine military there either. So Toretsk is about to be captured by the Russian military, maybe in the next couple of weeks or in a month or two. You have Chasov Yar in the next couple of weeks or a month or two. It's going to be captured by the Russian military. You have Pokrovsk. The fighting is going back and forth. But my guess would be once Russia wraps up Toretsk and Chasov Yar, it's going to be very difficult for the Ukraine military to hold on to Pokrovsk. And then you have Belgorod. This one's interesting. Belgorod, the Ukraine military is trying to enter Russian territory once again, this time through Belgorod. We got reports yesterday that the Ukraine army entered the southern parts of Deminovka in Belgorod, and they were trying to establish some sort of a foothold in Russian territory, Deminovka in Belgorod. But I was reading a post from Patrick Lancaster, and he said that the Russian forces, the latest reports are that they have expelled the Ukraine military from Deminovka, and now they're just mopping things up. So I don't know what the situation is in Belgorod. I'll take Patrick's reporting since he's there in the area. But we do have one prominent Ukraine mapping channel, AMK Mapping, which posted this on X. I've been thinking, since the new Belgorod operation with the Ukrainian command wasting even more lives on something that is doomed to fail, I'm done with having Ukrainian flags in my name. While it was meant to represent my support for the armed forces of Ukraine and not the government, most people won't get that. And at this point, it's just discrediting my work. I was stupid to keep it there for as long as it has been. I reiterate my support for most of the AFU, but the Ukrainian government is not interested in peace, and they certainly do not care about the lives of their soldiers. That's quite a post from AMK Mapping. I agree with what this mapping channel is saying. After everything that happened in Kursk, after the humiliation, the embarrassment for the Zelensky regime in Kursk for NATO and their incursion into Kursk, the tens of thousands of soldiers lost, lives lost for a PR operation, At first, to try and get the Kursk power plant, that failed, and then to run this nonsense narrative that you're trying to capture Kursk, or you're trying to hold on to Kursk, the Kursk region, so that you can use it as some sort of bargaining chip in future negotiations. All of this has failed. All of this has led to huge losses for the Zelensky regime and for the Ukraine military. Losses for nothing. They gained nothing out of this. There's no more bargaining chip. There was no Kursk NPP. A complete failure into Russian territory. And here they are again, trying to enter Russian territory. And everyone knows that it's not going to work. Eventually, whatever land they do manage to secure, for however long they manage to secure it, whether it's a week or whether it's several months, eventually the Russian military will remove the Ukraine military at a huge cost for the Ukraine military. But Zelensky is doing it because he's desperate, he's panicking, and now that he lost Kursk, the Zelensky regime is saying, you know what? I got to grab onto some sort of Russian land, some sort of Russian territory, so I can continue this bargaining chip media narrative that I've got going on. He doesn't care about his military. He doesn't care about his soldiers' lives. He cares about the optics, about the PR, the information war. Because it's that information war and those optics that lead the collective West, at least in the past, to provide him with endless amounts of money and weapons. But the weapons have run out. The money has run out. But Zelensky's desperation has not run out. Let's do some clown worlds, and we can wrap this video up. From Politico, why does Zelensky wear green? Why Zelensky won't wear a suit. All clothing sends a message, and the Ukraine president is that he is standing by his people as long as the war continues. Yeah, so Politico, they actually interview the designers of his Green Goblin outfits. No joke. And the designers of his Green Goblin outfits, they say that Zelensky is wearing the green because the green shows that he is in wartime mode. And if he were to wear a suit, well, that would show that there is peace and stability and negotiations and everything is back to normal. And that's not the message that Zelensky wants to convey. His designers even bring up Churchill. Of course they're going to bring up Churchill. To paraphrase Churchill, if our man put on a tie to avoid public humiliation, he would receive the same humiliation, but in a tie. Oh, I see you finally dressed like a man, Trump would say. The critic added, one of his fashion designers who's criticizing the mockery of Zelensky's green attire. His fashion designers are not very happy with the mockery that Zelensky is getting for his green outfit. They're not very happy. When world leaders see Zelensky in military style, it is a signal Ukraine is at war, and I am part of this fight. Elvira Grasanova, designer of the Dmitrly brand that is one of Zelensky's signature looks, told Politico a persistent call to return to the suit is a de facto demand to return to the usual format of political dialogue, which means enough of war, sit down at the negotiating table, Gasanova added. So there you have it. That is why Zelensky will not wear a suit. It's all about the message. Zelensky's very concerned with the message, the media, the PR, the optics of it all. Ursula's in trouble. She is in trouble. Queen of Europe no more. Ursula von der Leyen, the head of the European Commission, may in the future play a secondary role on the world stage. This is reported by German tabloid Bild. According to the newspaper, von der Leyen has reached the limits of her abilities and must now prioritize the rearmament of Europe. for which there are no funds and which is being blocked by some EU countries. So Bild is reporting that Ursula has lost her mojo. Ursula has lost her Queen of Europe mojo. Yeah, she's not respected by the Trump administration. During the AI summit in Paris, according to Bild, when Ursula gave her speech, J.D. Vance left. He was not interested in hearing what Ursula had to say. So he walked out of the event. And it shows that the Trump administration doesn't respect Ursula, which is true. How long has the Trump administration been in office? A couple of months? And have they met with the chief of the European Union? Think about that. They have not had a phone call or met with the chief of the European Union. I'm talking Trump and Ursula. She hasn't been to the White House. She hasn't been to the Oval Office. Nothing. What does that tell you? Yeah, the Trump administration, they're not so hot on Ursula, and this is taken away from her power. People in Europe see this, and they're saying Ursula doesn't have the Americans on her side, and if she doesn't have the Americans on her side, well, then she really doesn't have much of anything, does she? Kaja Kallas, she was supposed to meet with Marco Rubio, the stunning and brave Kaja Kallas, and Rubio, he canceled that meeting. Kallas was on the flight over to the United States, landed in the United States, was expecting to meet with Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, and Rubio canceled that meeting. So people are starting to panic in the EU, in Brussels HQ. They're losing the Americans. Ursula's not liked by the United States and by the Trump administration, and she's losing her power. No US, no power. That's the way it goes in Europe. So that's what Bild is reporting. They're also saying that Ursula, in order to reassert her dominance in Europe, she is coming up with this defense fund, the 800 billion in defense spending, the rearm Europe. This is her way of reasserting her dominance and her power in Europe by coming up with this massive slush fund. Rearm the EU, or the name change, not rearm the EU. Readiness 2030. It's no longer rearm the EU, it's readiness 2030. So that's what's going on in the European Union. And do we have any more clown worlds? The Telegraph, they put out an article over the weekend with the title, "If Russia was behind Heathrow fire, is that an act of war?" This is coming from the UK Telegraph. And I posted on X, if the UK was behind the Nord Stream pipeline attack, is that an act of war? You see, two can play at that game. Telegraph. If the UK was behind Nord Stream, is that an act of war? Just asking. Anyway, that is the video, everybody. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and X. Go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch, like what I am wearing in this video. Update a Duran hoodie and a Duran t-shirt. The link is in the description box down below. There's a 15% coupon, a special that we are now running on the Duran shop as well for all merch. A spring special, 15%. Check it out. I will see everybody tomorrow. Take care.